We'll call to order tonight's regular meeting of the Minot City Council. Roll call.
Here. Janser. Olson.
Here.
Podgula.
Here.
Podgula.
Here.
Straight.
Here.
Straight. Wolski.
Here.
Wolski.
Here.
Barney.
Number two is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
To the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get to the agenda, I'd like to remind everybody in the council, those of you in the audience, if you have your cell phones with you, please turn them off or mute them for the meeting. Item number 3 is approval of the minutes of the February 2018 regular city council meeting.
Move approval.
Moved by Olson.
Second.
Seconded by Sipma. Discussion. Call the roll.
Olson. Yes. Podgula.
Yes.
Podgula.
Yes.
Yes.
Straight.
Yes.
Yes.
Straight. Wolski.
Yes.
Yes.
Wolski. Barney.
Yes.
Barney. Janser.
Yes.
Yes.
Janser.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 4, bills and transfers and payroll. Moved by Janser. Seconded by Olson. Discussion. Call the roll.
Yes.
Janser.
Olson. Yes.
Podgula.
Yes.
Podgula.
Yes.
Yes.
Straight.
Yes.
Straight.
Yes.
Yes.
Wolski. Barney.
Yes.
Barney.
Yes. Motion passes. Item number 5 are personal appearances. This item's on the agenda for people to address the city council for any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody out there that wishes to address the council? Yes, sir. Come forward. State your name, please, for the record.
Yeah, my name's John Newman. Mayor and City Council. I represent the community that was impacted by the poor construction of a builder and the lack of oversight from the city as they allowed him to build in any manner that was pleasing to him without recourse. I feel had the city held this building codes that were adopted by the city with the responsibility to enforce, these many homes would not have been built in a negligent manner. The city allowed him to continually build by not holding him to the building codes that we as consumers rely so heavily on when purchasing a home. As a community, we rely on the building department to ensure that structures meet the applicable building codes, properly issue a certificate of occupancy. This is the same process that has been implemented over all the country. The certificate certifies that these homes were in fact inspected and met the building code. In our situation, these building codes were overlooked and ignored during the construction of these homes. We feel that the city has a responsibility to repair that they allowed to be created. The building department did not ensure the proper inspections were completed and completed to code. Nor did they ensure the building and plans complemented each other before the certificate of occupancy was issued, which we rely so heavily upon as home buyers. We feel the city has a responsibility to help us now in our time of need, as ensure that this does not happen to anyone again. From the meetings that we have with the city so far, we do not feel that the city cares about our situation. If they did care, action would have been taken by now to fix the problem that the city helped create by failing to hold the builder accountable. The city created this problem, and by so doing have placed an unfair burden on us as homeowners to repair the problems with our homes that should have been caught during inspections and during the construction of our homes. The city did not take action against the home builder by passing inspections when the code was violated. Then they issued a certificate of occupancy without properly matching information on the plans and permit. If the city had, he would not have impacted the enormous number of homes that he did, and we would not be standing before you asking for assistance. It is time for Minot City to take responsibility for this. Any other citizen of North Dakota would have to follow the laws. The city and its employees should not be exempt from following the law, enforcing the code, and protecting the homeowners in Minot. We ask that Minot City do the moral and right regardless of the consequences. Lack of integrity and morality is something the city has been struggling with. Please show the citizens constituents of Minot that Minot truly is a good place to live. Where we can hopefully once again trust our elected officials to represent the people. The Republic of the United States of America was created for the people, by the people. No government entity should be immune from liability. We just ask that the city be held to the same laws and standards of responsibility as any of us as individuals would be subject to. As the Pledge of Allegiance that we just recited moments ago states, for liberty and justice for all. At this time, we come to the city with solutions. Number one, under the Minot Review and Inspection Guide, Chapter 11, Code Compliance Program, the building official is responsible for the investigation and enforcement of building code violations. We as homeowners request through inspection, a thorough inspection of each home be conducted, certifying in writing that these homes or do not meet the building code requirements, and a solution to repair these issues, if any. If there is a claim process, we request all details pertaining to filing a claim to start this process. Number two, when it is determined that building codes are not met in any circumstance, the city will take responsibility to repair violation at no cost to the homeowner within a time frame agreed upon between the city and the homeowner. Number three, we also request that the Board of Appeals be convened to discuss if in fact a certificate of occupancy should or should not have been issued after reviewing these findings. Number four, the city needs to ensure that this builder is not able to move forward with rezoning his property, building or selling property until the city has reclaimed all costs associated with the home repairs that are found during inspections from item 1. Number 5, the city needs to ensure that all contractors go through a certification program that the city will create. This will ensure the builders that work here are competent to follow and to build to the current state building code adopted by the city at the time. Number 6, look into and obtain possible grants to relieve these unfair burdens. And finally, number 7, we request that the next city council meeting, the city council present the course of action they will take in regards to these requests. Respectfully, all affected homeowners.
Any questions for Mr. Newman? I'm sorry, any questions for Mr. Newman? Thank you, sir. Anybody else care to come up and speak with Mr. Newman? Thank you. Anybody else care to speak at personal appearances? Okay, thank you. Item number 6 is the mayor's report. I just have a brief report for tonight. A few of the meetings I went to on February 6th, I welcomed the Air Force Global Strike Command Commanders Conference in Minot. February 7th, I met with representatives from Burlington, Northern Santa Fe about the Ag Park out on the east side of town. On February 8th, I represented the city at the MADC annual meeting. Also on February 8th, I spoke at the State of the City event. I want to thank everyone who came out to support that. February 12th and 13th, I attended the Governor's Main Street Initiative with a number of with aldermen and also city staff. Those meetings were in Bismarck. We discussed it at the Committee of the Whole meeting. On February 14th, I was interviewed on the Good Talk Pod Show. And on February 20th, I represented the city at the 5th Bomb Wing Annual Awards Banquet. February 28th, along with Task Force 21, I met with senior executives from Northrop Grumman about the upgrades to the missiles at Minot Air Force Base. March 2nd, I celebrated Dr. Seuss's birthday by reading the children at Main Street Books with a number of aldermen. Also on March 2nd, I represented the city at the Minot Air Force Base Prairie Warrior Auction. In addition to that, I had numerous meetings with various people regarding the Mayor's Committee on Addiction. And I don't have any appointments for this evening, so that concludes my report. Mr. Barry.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. It's my pleasure to present to you the March City Manager's Report. Just jump right in with important dates moving forward. A couple dates to remember. We're going to be back as a staff, just a few of us, in Bismarck to testify in front of the Energy Development and Transmission Commission on the 8th of this month. On the 12th, we'll have some international visitors that are going to be meeting with both the mayor and I and other staff members. The International Economic Development Council will be here on the 12th and 13th in Minot. The Main Street Dashboard Data Conference will be held, or meeting will be held in Bismarck on the 21st of the month. There's a Magic Fund meeting on the 23rd at 7:30 here in Chambers. Planning Commission will be scheduled for 6:30 on the 26th. We'll have the next Committee of the Whole meetings at 4:15 here in Chambers on the 27th and the 28th. There's a flood protection groundbreaking that'll be taking place. I'll give you a little bit more information about that at 1:30 p.m. On the 28th. And finally, just as a reminder, Good Friday, the offices of the city will be closed on the 30th. So flood control, this is groundbreaking. We're very excited to talk about this. It's been a long time coming. I know pretty much the entire community is very excited about this. It'll be held at 1:30 at the 16th Street and Forest Road site. I'll show you a map here in just a moment as to where to park and where to convene. Keep in mind, Phase 1 is going to be located at 4th Avenue. The contractor's park construction, and of course that project will involve the construction of levees, walls, and a pump station. Phase 2 will be the Napa Valley project, which will be between the 16th Street and 83rd bypass, or 83 bypass. Wagner Construction was the successful contractor that bid on that project, and again, more levees. We'll have a road closure and also a pump station as part of that project. Phase 3 is going to be located near Forest Road, 16th and 3rd Avenue. Wagner, again, the contractor, and that project involves building additional levees as well. All three of those projects are what we're going to be kicking off and are going to be the first part of the phased implementation of flood control for our community. So we're pretty excited about that. Here's the parking detail just to kind of get people around. We have a number of vacant lots here on the south adjacent to the river for overflow parking. The parking lot just to the north there, just off 7th Avenue Southwest, will be where you'll probably want to park and then kind of walk to the site. Want to talk a little bit about the National Disaster Resilience Program update. The downtown gathering place is proceeding as planned. We did send out letters to all the property owners who are involved or in the general siting of that location to address their interest. Everyone has expressed interest in talking with the city and participating in the project to date. There's one outlier, and that's the old Sioux property, or the CP Rail property that's on the north side of the property site. We still need to try to get a hold of them and see what their interest is in this. Currently, for all the remaining properties that are interested, we're going to be determining the fair market value and then beginning to negotiate with them. Keep in mind, this is a voluntary acquisition program, not an involuntary one. On the multifamily housing side, we do have the request for proposals that's going to be considered tonight on the agenda. So if you have questions about that, we can address that at that point in time. We're going to be focusing that RFP on rehabilitating downtown Minot and the surrounding areas. And the team is also discussing multifamily development with nonprofit organizations in a way to develop subrecipient agreements, which would allow us to directly work with those nonprofits to bring about some of the actionable items that we've discussed in the NDR program. We have submitted, as you know, last year, I want to say it was around late November, a waiver to allow us to move forward with the City Hall portion of the NDR projects. That process is slow. We were told that it would take about 4 to 6 months. We're getting up to the end of the 4-month period or so, and so we continue to kind of nudge HUD to try to get some progress made. It's been a bit silent at the moment, so we're hopeful something shakes loose on that here in the next month or so. Lastly, the single-family housing project is focused on gap financing at this point. We're trying to help low to moderate income families fill the gap and stay in Minot as it relates to continuing along with the housing incentive program. We're motivating buyers to, as I mentioned, stay in Minot, but there are going to be some restrictions that are going to apply that folks who are going to be interested in this program need to kind of work with staff to address and make sure that all the qualifications are met for that program to be applicable to them. The International Economic Development Council is going to be visiting with us again here March 12th through the 14th. You might recall they provided a sort of Economic Development 101 workshop late last year. They're going to be back. We're going to have one economic development expert and 3 other development professionals or economic development professionals that will make up the team from around the country. They'll be doing 3 days worth of research in Minot to essentially identify strengths and weaknesses and various opportunities and other challenges that we have as a community, and make sure that we develop strategies for moving forward with an economic development plan that makes the most sense for the city. So stay tuned. I think they're going to be meeting with some of us individually, and of course we'd like for you to be involved to whatever extent that you'd like to. Moving forward, we are going to have the council workshop that we've talked about on April 4th from about noon to 5. Most of the sorry about that. Most of the conversation in and around the council workshop will be around personnel management, talking specifically about recruitment and retention, the employee pay plan, the healthcare program, and some other questions that came up during the last budget process. So we want to make sure that before we head into this budget process, we're clear on all of those details so that we can put the budget together accordingly this year. All right, next I mentioned that we're going to be talking with the Energy Development and Transmission Commission here in, on the 7th and the 8th of this month, later this week actually. And this is important because we are continuing to tell the story about why Minot is deserving to be a hub city and how we've been impacted by the oil and gas activities that have occurred in and around our community. And I'll just maybe summarize with one graphic here that shows essentially why it's so important for us to remain engaged with this particular project. And that's this graph here. If you look at the other 2 hub cities, Williston and Dickinson, you'll see here a comparison. The yellow talks about the increase in population between 2010 and 2016. The blue bar represents how much money those communities have gotten from hub city financing. And you can see there is a very obvious outlier here. That's what we're concerned about, and that's what we want to make sure that our state representatives fully understand, that we've had, to say the least, a very big impact similar to the other communities, but we've received very, very little funding in the way of hub city funding for that. So those are big dollars. We've continued to see them dwindle over the last couple of years, and we want to correct that particular situation. So all the more reason for us to be down and make a strong presence and a strong case. You may notice, maybe the community notices too, we've got a new, some improvements that have been brought to the City Council chambers. The most obvious is the ADA ramp here, which allows us to have handicap access to the dais, which I think is important, particularly for those who may want to serve in our community government. We also have 4 cameras now that are surrounding the facility, which allow us to get better audio and video, I should say, which is streamed live on the website and also archived. We also are going to have this podium replaced, and it will be upgraded to include an ADA accessible countertop, which would allow folks who have disabilities to come up and utilize it. And in addition, some of the other improvements include having a hearing impaired transmitter, which is the black box that's sitting right up above Alderman Padragula's head. That allows for anyone who has hearing impairments to join the conversation, either through a couple different mechanisms. One through receivership for transmitting or receiving of hearing impairment devices that allow for that, or alternatively we do have headphones as well. So we're trying to improve access and also transparency for the council chambers, which I think is important. This project cost about $70,000, which was the budget for these and other improvements. And those were paid for by the sales tax monies that came as a disbursement through the Community Facilities Fund last year, you might recall. Okay. The police department, I want to do a couple recognitions here. We had a promotion. Greg Johnson was promoted from senior officer to sergeant. So we do want to thank him for his continued service with the department and stepping up into that role. And also the police department did have Officer and Employee of the Year awards. And I just wanted to bring to your attention that Senior Officer Ross Lackaduck was named Officer of the Year, and then Lead Dispatcher Sean Christie was named Employee of the Year for the police department. So we do appreciate their service and certainly their outstanding contributions to the city. Lastly, just want to let you know the Community Development Director position has been advertised. We are advertising in a number of different venues, including the American Public Works Association, the American Planning Association, International City and County Managers Association, governmentjobs.com, North Dakota Job Service, our website, and a number of other things. We're attempting to fill this position using internal resources first. If that doesn't work, we may be coming back to the City Council to talk about the possibility of hiring some professional help in the form of a headhunter to maybe look for that position. But in any event, we do hope that goes well for us. We're excited. We've already gotten a few applications to date, which is exciting, given the fact that it's not been out for very long. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have and wrap it up for the evening.
Any questions for Mr. Berry? Alderman Straight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tom, I guess I wanted to thank you about the upcoming Hub City meeting in Bismarck. I think it's important going forward, any dates and times you're aware of to try to pass on to the council for if we can be of assistance in Bismarck. I think it's incredibly important. Director Jonason spoke of the importance of that last week at the Cirrus Joint Board meeting, and it's critical that as much as our folks work hard and have to go down to Bismarck, it's more important that we end up in Bismarck to not just back them up, but legislators would rather hear from us than hear from city staff, and I think it's incredibly important. So the more heads up that we can get with this a part-time gig, I recognize we all have other jobs, but we need to try to be there to support city staff. So I just wanted to thank you on that.
Any other questions for Mr. Berry? I want to clarify that Senator Wardner, who's put together these meetings down there, has been a tremendous asset to the community. He's out of Dickinson, but he's been very supportive of Minot. He's the one to put together those tours that we presented at a few months ago, and he's the one who's put these meetings together, and I look forward to seeing him and thanking him again in person for everything he's done for all of the hub cities. But he's been very cognizant of not cutting Minot out, and there are some in the legislature that would like to do that. So I'm grateful for that. Any other questions, Mr. Berry? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
City Attorney.
Mayor, members of the council, I've submitted a written report, and if you have any questions, I can answer those at this time.
Any questions for the City Attorney? Thank you. Item number 8 is consider the report of the Magic Fund Steering Committee. Mr. Zimmerman, I believe I saw you. There he is. Please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you, members of the council. In your packet was the 2017 compliance report on the Magic Fund Screening Committee. I won't go into any great detail as it was pretty straightforward. Had kind of a light year, but if you have any questions, gladly do my best to answer those, and I would defer any of the financial questions to Mr. Lakefield or a member of his staff if there's anything specific to that.
Any questions for Mr. Zimmerman? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item number 9 is consider the report of the Planning Commission. Do you need a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move consent on the Planning Commission items.
That's items 1 through 6. Pardon me?
I would request we pull number 5.
Number 5. Anybody else want anything pulled? Anybody in the audience want any of these other items pulled? Otherwise, we're going to go through as they came out of the Planning Commission. We need a second. Second by Sitma. Sorry about that. Call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Barney.
Yes. Item number 5, adopt a resolution for a conditional use permit to enlarge a daycare from the allowed 18 children plus staff to 22 children plus staff on Bodine subdivision of lots 4 through 7, South Half Lot 8 and South Half Lot 3, Block 3, Holmes Acre Addition, Block 2, Lot 3. Is there a motion? Alderman Straight.
Mr. Mayor, I would move
Move.
the agenda item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Sitma. Alderman Wolski.
Mayor Barney, thank you. Chief Flaremont, wondering if you might come up for a question.
Chief, could you come forward, please?
Chief, I'm just curious if you've had an opportunity to review this permit request, and do you have any issues with it?
Mayor, Alderman Wolski, I did have a conversation with our fire prevention personnel today about this item. The state is the licensing agency, and fire does not have much of a say when it comes to how many children they can have. If the state is okay with it, we're okay with it, as long as they comply with all of our codes and our local ordinances, then we're good.
Anybody else? Any questions? Alderman Straight?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, I don't have one for you. I guess I just have more of a comment for this body.
Before she go, any questions for the chief? Thank you.
Yep.
Alderman Straight.
Thank you, sir. I guess I just wanted to point this out to the body. I reached out to Chief today and also to Mr. Lance Lang. It starts to concern me a little bit that at planning, this was a bit of a hot button issue. There's a neighborhood kind of disagreement taking place, and unfortunately between neighbors, which isn't ours to resolve. But as these facilities continue to reach out, they can have upwards of 30 plus children, and it becomes an issue, I think, for us to be aware of how many staff are regulating and aware of what's happening on the premises. It starts to occupy more city street for drop-off and pickup, so it becomes a little bit more of an issue, and so I just want to put it on everybody's radar moving forward. I'm not going to object to this tonight, but it concerns me a little bit moving forward, just because we can put more and more children in these homes and safety becomes paramount. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further discussion? Is there anybody from this daycare that wishes to come forward and speak to this issue? Your
Mayor,
name?
Council, I'm Greg Combs, my wife Jennifer. We do have a letter from the state recommending your approval, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Alderman Straight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sir, can you just educate us a little bit on how many adults are now required for the increase to 22 children?
I'm licensed for 18 now, and I'm over staffed. My licensor had brought it to my attention that a child in our community that had bounced in and out of my care in the past 2 years because of her parents' drug use, the grandmother has gotten custody of her. She had called my state licensor. When she called me to get back into my daycare, I didn't have the room for her. She's pleaded with my state licensor. My state licensor brought this up to do a special use permit. I don't specifically want to take on more children, but I would like to accommodate her. And I have 4 staff members now that are full-time regardless. We had 10 kids there today, and all 4 of us are always there. It's in my home. I've been doing it for 25 plus years, and so it's not necessarily that I want to go. I mean, my licensor brought it up to me to do 30, and I want nothing to do with that. I mean, I want it to keep quality care. I've got parents that are expecting, and I would have to bump them out, you know, and it's uprooting children that I don't want to do. So the main purpose of us doing this was just to be able to accommodate the one child that has been in and out of, you know, all kinds of stuff with parents, addicted parents. But
Okay.
So it really wasn't a matter of me wanting a ton more children. I just want to be able to accommodate the families I already have.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for your service.
And
Other questions? I want, yeah, if you want to just, if we could get a copy of that for our records, we'd be grateful.
you want them up there?
Sure, come on up. No, that's fine. We just give them to the clerk and we'll be good. Before you leave the podium, just on a personal note here, as you may or may not know, that we have this committee, the Mayor's Committee on Addiction, and I've become sensitized to the issues that many of these families go through, and quite often it's the children that suffer. So, thank you.
That's what's been
Right.
extremely hard for me in this whole ordeal, and that's why I came forward. It's just, this little girl has been a part of my life since she was little, but leaves and comes because of her parents. Well, now Grandma wants her in a stable environment, and that's basically why I did this.
Well, thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Further discussion from the council? You can sit.
Thank you.
Yep. Further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Olson.
just a general comment about daycare. As the lone woman on the council, I know how important daycare is to so many families in our community, and I think whenever we can support our daycare providers, we need to do so.
Thank you. Further discussion? Call the roll.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Barney,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Quadrigula,
Yes.
Sitma.
Yes.
Motion carries. Alderman Janser.
Mr. Mayor, before we leave the Planning Commission items, there was an item, number 6, that was on the Planning Commission agenda last time, and I was going to ask the council to talk about this tonight. However, I was informed that since it wasn't noticed, that's probably not advisable. But I'm wondering if we couldn't simply ask the Planning Commission, send it back to the Planning Commission and ask them to reconsider this item. I've been told that there's been some progress made with regard to working out an arrangement with the city engineer that would help this go forward, and so if we could do that, please.
I'm not sure we can send something back to something we don't have, can we? Or can the Planning Commission just take it up on their own after they've turned it down? What's the...
It could be added to the Planning Commission agenda.
Can we just do that administratively?
I think we could do that.
Is that okay?
Be fine by me.
Do you want to do it in a form of a motion, or do you trust
Sure.
them?
Well, as you wish. I guess I would move that we ask that the Planning Commission reconsider this particular matter. It was item number 6 with Southwest Crossing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Olson. Any further discussion? Further discussion? Call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Quadrigula,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Barney.
Yes. Motion passes. Item number 10 is to consider the report of the Committee of the Whole at their February 27th, 2018 meeting. There's 12 items on the agenda. Is there a
Mr. Mayor,
motion?
I'd move consent on 1 through 12.
Second.
Seconded, moved by Sitma, seconded by Janser. Discussion. Again, for those of you in the audience, this means that all of these items will be passed as they were, as they came out of the Committee of the Whole meetings last week. So is there something up there that you would like pulled for further consideration? Let me know. Seeing no one, call the roll.
Sitma,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Barney,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Quadrigula.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 11 is consider the report of the Committee of the Whole. Before we get to a motion, I believe we need to pull 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. I want 9 and 11 pulled. I believe 10 needs to be pulled for correction, and 5, 6, 7, and 8 because there was no recommendation coming out of the committee.
12, please.
Pardon me?
12.
And 12, sorry. So, do we have a would you like to make a motion then, Alderman Padragula, on the
Yes.
remaining items?
I would move consent on the remaining items.
Those remaining items will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 13. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Olson. So, for those of you in the audience, that means items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 13 will be passed as they came out of the Committee of the Whole meeting. So if there's one of those items there that you would like to have pulled for discussion, let us know, and we will pull that item for you. Seeing no one, let's call the roll.
Padragula?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Wolski?
Yes.
Barney?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson? Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 5 is the SCBA bid acceptance. Chief, would you want to come up front so you're ready for any questions that may... Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Move approval as on our desk.
Yes.
Second.
Seconded by Sitma. Discussion or questions for the chief? Discussion? Call the roll.
Olson? Yes. Padragula?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Wolski?
Yes.
Barney?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 6, SCBA compressor bid acceptance. Do I have a motion?
Move the recommendation.
Moved by Janser,
Second.
seconded by Straight. Any questions for the chief? Alderman Sitma.
Thank you. Chief, going back on the bidding process, is there a different avenue to take to, I think, come out to a more agreeable conclusion than what you got the first time?
Mayor, Alderman Sitma, yes, we are going to decrease the requirements on the spec. We're going to ask for a 4-stage as opposed to a 5-stage. It'll still get us to where we need, but it won't fill the bottles as quickly as a 5-stage, but it's going to meet our budget.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Further questions for the chief? Alderman Janser, did you have one?
I think that took care of it.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Call the roll.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson? Yes. Padragula?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Wolski?
Yes.
Barney?
Yes. Item 7, Station 3 remodel project bid acceptance.
So moved.
Moved by Sitma,
Second.
seconded by Janser. Questions for the chief? You're getting off easy.
Maybe just one, Mr.
One
Mayor.
from Sitma.
Chief, when we had spoke last, when we did a tour of the station north, has there been any further communication with the FAA on that whole process on moving forward, or are we still coming up to that threshold?
Mayor Alderman Sitma, we did receive a preliminary percentage of support, which came back 63.3%, I believe was the number. And our director, Feltner, he said we will be supporting it with 50% for FAA funding. So it's looking good so far, but we have not received any money, and so it's not stamped yet.
Thank you.
Alderman Janser.
I guess just to talk about the timing of that a little bit, as I understood it from earlier discussions, it was anticipated those awards typically aren't made until later in the year, like in the fall.
August, I believe.
August or somewhere.
And
yeah.
Mayor Alderman Janser, September is when we can see
okay.
the money, yes.
Okay.
Further questions for the chief? Call the roll.
Sitma?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Wolski?
Yes.
Barney?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson? Yes. Padragula?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 8, Fire Department Training Officer position.
Move approval.
Moved by Olson,
Second.
seconded by Sitma. Questions for the chief? We discussed this at some length at the Committee of the Whole, but seeing no one, call the roll.
Olson? Yes. Padragula?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Wolski?
Yes.
Barney?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 10 is 4310-2018 Street Seal District Award of Bid. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. 4309 2018 Street Patching Award of Bid. Is there, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Sitma. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Straight. Discussion. Any discussion? Anybody in the audience want to come forward and address this issue?
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. Dustin Keller from Keller Paving.
And Justin Thurn, Keller Paving. We're here to discuss Project 4309, the 2018 street patching project, and 4311, the 2018 sidewalk curb and gutter project, which would be item 11. These types of projects are who we are at Keller Paving. It's the kind of work that we do. That's why we're able to save the taxpayers of Minot $90,000 on the street patching project and $25,000 on the sidewalk and curb and gutter project by being the lowest bidder on those two projects. In our bids that are $115,000 less than the next bids, we simply used last year's pricing. There wasn't much of an increase of fuel or oil or anything, so we were able to continue using last year's pricing. We didn't lowball, nor were we posturing for any change orders or trying to cut corners. This is not and never been acceptable business practice of Keller Paving. These two projects are not rocket science. Keller Paving has completed a lot of this type of work. In 2016, we did this exact same street patching project and also a street improvement project, which were both completed on time. The city even added additional work as budgets allowed. It's my understanding that we're not being recommended by the city engineer because of past liquidated damages and alleged delays. Keller Paving understands these delays and damages. Some of them are warranted. We'll own a mistake if we've made one. But you must understand that liquidated damages have only followed a small number of Keller Paving's projects, and those projects were multi-phase projects with multi-level timing involving millions of dollars. And what we're talking about tonight is patching and curb and gutter work, a few $100,000 each project that can save the taxpayers $115,000 by awarding them to us. I ask that you understand that liquidated damages, when paid, are designed to compensate and make whole the owner of the contract, which would be the city of Minot, usually resulting in savings of the contract price. By blacklisting Keller from projects, we're being unjustly penalized 2 times over. I've attached, I emailed all of you a table showing most of the projects that we've had with the city over the past few years, and kind of highlighted the areas that there were liquidated damages were significant sized projects. And we do agree that it's good to make contractors accountable with liquidated damages, and we at Keller are accountable. We're here tonight because we feel blindsided. We didn't know until last Thursday that we weren't going to be recommended for future work for the city of Minot. Yet our bid was opened by the city, and we feel there's a statutory duty to accept our bid. But more importantly, it's the right thing to do. We've enjoyed working with Lance Meyer, the city engineer. We respect his authority. He did tell us last Thursday that he feels we're qualified to do this type of work, but he needs to be consistent, and he is going to recommend not awarding us any prime contracts during 2018. We employ over 50 people during construction season, and we've had employees that have been with us for decades. Minot calls on Keller Paving regularly. They called on us for help with the flood. We've been the go-to company for miscellaneous patching, paving, snow removal, and countless other tasks. Your city departments call on Keller often on projects that are out of the norm that no one else wants to do because we're not afraid to tackle any type of project. I also gave you another attachment that, I'm sorry, that was the attachment that outlines the liquidated damages on the projects. Front page of the Minot Daily News on Friday showed a picture of one of the many unforeseen issues that we encountered on the downtown Phase 2 project. Unknown to us, there's a long-term water break that the city had waited to have addressed until the downtown infrastructure project began, resulting in the city issuing a change order within the first week of the project for something that was unforeseen. We stepped in and addressed the problem. We asked for additional time and were granted some, but not even close to all the time that was needed to complete that repair. We also requested a change in phasing to help speed up the project and to minimize impact to businesses. And we were never stopped from doing it, but eventually turned out to be unapproved. And that resulted in a lot of liquidated damages when one phase was late. The other phase was late, and Phase 2 and 3 and 4, all the phases became late, adding many days. On the 36th Avenue project up north by Ramstead, We had a subcontractor doing the underground work, Vortex drain tiling. They walked off the job and left us hanging. The city viewed them as a responsible contractor and awarded them a project on 8th Street. And using that as a basis, we viewed them as a responsible subcontractor. When both projects started falling behind, the city demanded that Vortex finish its job with the city first before sending additional resources to our job. We cooperated with the city even though it put our project farther behind. Vortex filed bankruptcy and we satisfied all of Vortex's obligations, including finishing the project, paying for their suppliers, and absorbing the liquidated damages assessed by the city. The city wants a database of contractors to show past performance. Keller Paving has asked for that as well. Since no one has such a database, Keller Paving should not be punished when City Council does not know how Keller Paving's performance compares to any other contractor. We hope that you'll accept our bids and save the taxpayers $115,000 on these two jobs.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Thurn and Mr. Keller? Any questions? Alderman Wolski.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming and thank you for presenting your arguments tonight. I was appreciative of and looking forward to your response to our actions last week. My question for you guys, when you have a subcontractor that underperforms, what action do you take?
I don't know that one. Typically, we just have them start performing more. We go through basis on 36th Avenue is underground. At that time, we actually hired in another contractor, Conley Post, to step in and help us finish that project. We still worked with them, not firing them off the job. At that time, in the middle of the season, it's really hard to find another contractor to come in and take on that scope of work when everybody's kind of got all their bids laid out and all their schedules. So that project was, I don't know, I'd say just its own different means there, so.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Thurn and Mr. Keller?
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Sitma.
Just a short follow-up question regarding the downtown. And understandably, there was a lot of different pieces of that puzzle that were moving all independently at times. But the point that you had made about being late to the city and the point that was conveyed very heavily, not only to the folks that were on council at that time, but throughout the downtown, those delays, I think, echoed economically well beyond just the late pieces of those completion dates. And I don't know if it's so much of a question, Mr. Mayor, but coming back to the issue at hand is that database does need to be drawn. And the question that I would pose to any contractor is, if we're going to take a stand in terms of making sure that the responsibility matches the low bid, where's that line in the sand drawn? That's a very difficult question to ask, but where is it drawn? And that's what's before the council tonight, is to make sure that we don't have issues that are still echoing from parking ramps and beyond. So that might be the question that's answerable or unanswerable, but where is that line drawn?
I guess at this one, we're looking at the street patching. To me, I'm comparing apples to apples. We've done this project in the past. Before, it used to be broken up between 3 contractors, just given out. Now they've put it into one package. We completed this package in 2016. We're asking to get this again. I know what you're asking for on larger scale projects. I don't know, to me, it's gonna have to almost be case by case would be the best way to handle that.
Further questions for the gentleman? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Anybody else care to come forward and speak on this issue? Your name, please.
My name is Reed Soderstrom, and I represent Keller Paving. Mr. Mayor, may I give a one-page handout of the law regarding this matter?
Sure.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to briefly give this council a summation of the law I just handed out and point out to you the attributes of the lowest responsible bidder. 4801.2-07 talks about the opening of bids and the award of the contract. And I've highlighted the first sentence here. I won't go into a lot of detail. It'll be done in just a few minutes. But it states, at the time and place specified in the notice, a governing body or its designated agent shall open publicly and read aloud each responsible bid received. When you stop right there, the fact that Keller's bid was opened, I think it's already established they're a responsible bidder. And for anyone to represent to this council anything else, it goes against the law. Their bid was opened, they're a responsible bidder because the law says so. It goes on to state the definition there of the lowest responsible bidder, subsection 19 of 48-01.2-01-19. But it talks about the lowest bidder, meaning, and there's some discretion there for the council that it can utilize, but I've highlighted the other pertinent attributes that may be identified. And I believe the representatives of Keller tonight have spoken well. They've given you letters of where they're at. They've been honest. Councilman Wolski, if I can add, what does Keller do when there's someone that's a subcontractor that's slowing them down? They do what they have to do. They communicate, they talk. In the case of Vortex up on North Hill for Keller, they were considered a valued subcontractor because the city had used them on a general contract. When Vortex was not responding to their communications, they came to my office, the Dunning letter went out, and we promptly, because of the season, brought a civil action against them, and they quickly filed bankruptcy thereafter. And Keller was trying to pick up the pieces after that project. Councilman Sipma, where do you draw the line? In this case, this is a curb and gutter project and a street patching project. As the Kellers have been so honest to admit, it's not rocket science, and yet it saves the taxpayers $115,000. I notice on your agenda, there's a lot of other places where that money can go. So in my opinion, as Dustin Keller mentioned, where do you draw the line? Probably you would want to be very, very careful on a multi-level, multi-phasing $1 million project and be very careful on those. But again, this is street patching, this is curb and gutter, and this is $115,000 in savings to the city. This, if you go fact specific on these two projects alone, look at the dollars and look at, as I've highlighted in my handout to you, the other pertinent attributes. Kellers have talked about, they've been in Minot a long time. They employ over 50 people. They were there for the city during the flood, working hard in that difficult time. They were there. They're Johnny on the spot when the city calls for emergency patching, for snow removal, things like that. They've done a lot of good things. Are they perfect? No, they don't pretend to be. They own the problems that are theirs. They've explained some of the liquidated damages that have been assessed. And I understand, Councilman Padragula, you asked for a database last week, and we don't have that yet, or someone did, regarding other contractors and liquidated damages. You don't have enough information to draw the line in the sand right now. Tonight, take a look at the dollar amount, take a look at the project and what's on the table and what can be done. And in this case right now, I think Keller is the responsible bidder and should be given the bid on behalf of the taxpayers. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions, Mr. Soderstrom? Alderman Janser.
Do you know on the two bids that we are considering tonight, whether your client intends to use any subcontractors?
I do not know offhand. I would defer to Dustin. Justin, I don't believe so, though. It's a project they will handle internally for that size.
On the curb and gutter, we have one contractor doing the concrete with us. That'll be Flores Concrete, and the city's used them multiple times. Great contractor to work with. We've always been on time when it comes to concrete and paving.
Thank you.
Other questions, Mr. Soderstrom? Alderman Janser? No. Anybody else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Alderman Janser.
Mr. Mayor, maybe a question for our city attorney. Notwithstanding the explanation of Keller's attorney, can you identify for us the situation with respect to responsible bidder opening the bid and so forth that's brought up here?
Mayor and Alderman Janser, when you look at the language of the statute, it states that at the date and time specified in the notice, a governing body or its designated agent shall open publicly and read aloud each responsible bid received. And I don't believe the governing body was involved in opening this particular bid. I believe it was a designated agent, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, that opened this bid. And the next line states that the governing body shall award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder. So while it does state that a responsible bid received will be checked to see if it meets submission specs and the actual language of the notice, the governing body has the ultimate authority to determine whether or not the contract should be awarded to what they determine is the lowest responsible bidder. And so in determining responsible bidder, the governing body can involve the elements of ability, capacity, reputation, experience, and the things of the like when making the determination on whether or not they think that bid is being awarded to the lowest responsible bidder.
Thank you for that clarification.
Further discussion. Alderman Padragula.
I had a question for the city engineer and or manager. Several of us have expressed interest in tracking contractors more effectively in their performance. And I wanted to get an update where we were with this database so we have some objective, uniform, fair standards to judge contractors by.
Mr. Meyer.
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Padragula, before last week, the database was here. And so we've taken the time now to put that in a form. And actually, it was Mr. Soderson's office that requested that through an open records request. So that information has been ready, and we communicated that with their office today that it's ready for pickup. So we can give that to all of you. It's fairly simplistic. We've only gone back probably about 4 or 5 years, the same period as what we're looking at in our memo here in front of you.
Alderman Janser.
Maybe a question related to the assertion that these two projects that we're considering, or these two awards of bid that we're considering, are perhaps less complex and involve less moving pieces than the, for instance, the downtown project. Could you comment on that? Does that track with your thinking as well, or would you disagree with that, Lance?
Mr. Mayor and Alderman Janser, while it is very easy to look at the two projects, downtown versus some of our city maintenance projects, and say that they are very different, and they are. They are fairly simplistic. There's not a long list of subcontractors, but when I review bids, we take a look at the fact that not only can the contractor perform the work, but do they have the management capabilities in-house to perform that work, manage subcontractors and contracts, and can they do that over and over again? From our standpoint, when we look at this contractor, we're kind of all over the board. Sometimes we're right on target, sometimes we're not. And from a city staff standpoint, you're either a responsible bidder or you're not. And so, in my opinion, I don't have the luxury of looking at one contractor and saying, well, I think you're responsible in this case, but in this instance, you're not. And so that's why our recommendation was on this project to go with the number 2, knowing that ultimately the city council has that final authority. And obviously we would work with Keller Paving if they're awarded tonight, or the second low. It's your choice.
Further questions, Alderman Sitma.
Mr. Meyer, regarding the second lowest bidder, performance-wise comparability through the past 4 years, the assertion is that they are a responsible low bidder. What does their past performance scheduling look like?
Mr. Mayor and Alderman Sitma, both second low bidders in this case have not had any liquidated damage issues.
Thank you.
Further, Alderman Padragula.
kind of a follow-up on that to the city engineer, and I don't want this to be kind of an adversarial proceeding, but the projects they were behind, I think, really substantially impacted the community. The 32nd or whatever avenue it is up there by SRT, and certainly the downtown one. And we're talking about, in one case, they were, 4 months late. That's a big deal. And it isn't just the money, as I said earlier, it's the inconvenience to citizens. To what extent do you think their lateness was under their control? I remember we had a lot of difficulty with that one subcontractor, Vortex, and I think some of us raised concerns when they were starting to get behind last summer or the summer before, whenever that was, and they ended up going out of business. Thoughts on that?
Mr. Mayor and Alderman Padragula, I can give an example. Our Phase 3 contractor on the downtown project accelerated their schedule, and they got all the underground construction done way ahead of schedule, which would mean then that we'd have streets not paid for potentially months. We told that contractor it's their responsibility to make sure that contract times are met, and they need to find other contractors to assist them. So they did just that. And they found another contractor to help them accelerate their schedule to get that project done on time. On the 36th Avenue, the same conversation was had with this contractor, where they had a bad subcontractor. We all understand that, and those things happen. However, it's their job as the general contractor to bring in the resources necessary to get the project back on track and on schedule. And over the course of that time period, our consulting engineers sent letter after letter reminding them of the contract schedule and our concern that they're getting behind. And yes, it is an instance where other underground contractors were busy, and maybe that was just in our area, but they needed to find somebody to come and fill that role at whatever cost it was to them to get the project back on schedule, and they didn't do that.
Other questions for Mr. Meyer? Alderman Wolski.
Mayor Barney, thanks. Mr. Meyer, the database that was, or the spreadsheet that was included in our memo last week, am I to understand that the database or the spreadsheet that you guys are keeping at this point is more extensive than the cutout that was shown to us? In other words, is the information that you've been collating and bringing together regarding past projects, is that inclusive of all the projects in the city over the last 4 or 5 years, or are we still looking exclusively at Keller's projects?
Mr. Mayor and Alderman Wolski, for the purpose of the memo, for the items that were in front of you, we pulled that data on Keller paving just to show the recent history. Other contractors that we've had issues with, most of them have not been back and done work for the city here recently. When I forward you that list of contractors, I don't want to name them here tonight, but I think you'll see that. They haven't had work in some time. However, if they would bid on a project again, our recommendation would look very similar to what you're seeing in front of you tonight regarding their potential project. Did that answer your question, sir?
Alderman Janser.
Lance, you indicated that the second low bidder, in answer to Alderman Padragula's question, that they did not have liquidated damages. Did they do significant work for the city, or have they done projects for the city in that same time span?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Janser, on the patching project, Minot Paving is the second low bidder. They recently completed our downtown alley reconstruction alongside the parking ramps. That project was completed on time. They've done a good job on that. They've performed other projects for us in the past. It's been a while since they had any of our street maintenance projects. That's probably been at least 5 or 6 years, but they've been subcontractors to other generals on projects, and to my knowledge have not had any issues.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions for Mr. Meyer? Alderman Olson.
If a contractor is blacklisted, for lack of a better term, how long will we be considering that? When would we give them another opportunity to submit a bid and carry out a project for us?
Mr. Mayor and Alderman Olson, and maybe just to clarify a point, the city doesn't have an official blacklist, right? So when a bid comes before us, if it's responsive is the terminology we use, meaning it meets all the qualifications to open that bid, we have to do that. Now, once we get the bid, then we start looking at what is responsible as defined in our bidding documents. So in this regard, Keller did meet that requirement to open, and then our recommendation as far as a time frame, I think under my recommendation, if we had any other projects that would open in 2018, I feel my recommendation would still hold. Regarding projects the following year in 2019, to be determined, but I think from our standpoint, what we're trying to help get across to this contractor is that they need to do some things internal to make sure that this sort of issue doesn't affect the city and its citizens anymore.
Thank you.
Further questions, Mr. Mayor? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Further discussion from the council? Alderman Janser.
Mr. Mayor and fellow council members, I think it's been healthy that we've been able to air this discussion tonight. And I think it's important that the Keller Paving folks understand that the city and the council are serious about demanding performance. But since our committee of the whole meeting, I have thought about the comments that Mr. Mayor, that you made, you know, relative to the cost to the taxpayers of not only delivering but you know, acting on this message. And so, as in past instances, I'm always in favor of taking the low bid wherever possible. You know, wherever there's a reasonable expectation that we're going to get performance that is adequate. And so, given that fact and given what has been stated by the contractor tonight, and given the nature of the two items that we're considering, I'm not going to be able to support the recommendation to take the higher bid.
Further discussion, Alderman Patricola.
I think I'm also going to follow Alderman Janser. Some other things have changed. We may be needing to use the money from this. I'm concerned too, this is the major concern, that there hasn't been advance public notice to the contractors of how serious we are. I think we gave the notice last week in our committee of the whole meetings, and I think we're giving it now. I kind of took offense at the blacklist comment. All the city engineer says is he's going to take that into consideration, and this year he doesn't feel that the record, you know, merits a suggestion of an award. I think these contracts are simpler if they're just for curb and gutter, don't involve much coordination. I'm a little concerned that, I don't want to say we changed the rules in the middle of the game, but if Keller first found out how serious this was going to be on Thursday, and only Keller found out, bothers me a little bit. I think that should be part of the disclosure, you know, when we ask for the bids. It's a tough call for me, but I think I've been persuaded by the arguments of the mayor and the council president to give them this opportunity. But I think from here on out, I think we need to say that very clearly to every contractor. You do the work on time, and if you don't, there are going to be consequences. This was it. And again, because these contracts are somewhat different, they're simpler. And I think I do have some sympathy for the company, because the other company, you know, went out on them, and the situation downtown was a little bit murkier. You know, I would agree generally with the city engineer's assessment. I guess I'm just on this one. I think the two arguments kind of persuade me to change my mind.
Alderman Sitma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can understand and appreciate the comments, both Mr. Padragoul and Mr. Janser, and for me it's looking back at the past and what we've wanted for consistency. I understand there's a good amount of money when we talk about going from the low bid to the second low bid here. For me, looking back at how the citizens have been impacted by inconsistencies of the past, I fully appreciate and the understanding that that Keller Paving wants to move forward with this and is going to grow from this. But for me, this is my line in the sand, looking back at past consistency and sending that message that it is not only going to be just that rock bottom dollar, but that consistency that perhaps may have gotten us out of some of the problems that are facing us right now today. So I'm going to be supporting the motion.
Further discussion? Alderman Wolski.
Mayor Barney, thank you. Last Tuesday, when I made comments regarding the need to establish a database and continue in the effort to begin holding contractors accountable, I did not realize, or I'd only just been made aware that this was going to be on our radar for the following day. I greatly appreciate staff's efforts in bringing this information together and giving us sort of a first crack at what this might look like in the future. Along the lines of tonight's issue, I've been, I think, swayed. I'm falling in line with Alderman Janser, Alderman Padragulo, Mayor Barney in his past statements. I think we've sent a pretty strong message. I think we have some improvements to make on our methodology in terms of the way we try to use this past information and use it consistently and use it to the benefit of the taxpayers ultimately. So I won't be supporting this tonight, and we'll see what we get after that.
For Alderman Straight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm going to speak first to Mr. Meyer. And Lance, I commend you for bringing this forward first and foremost, because this is something that's obviously been happening, and I appreciate you standing up for this and bringing it most importantly to our attention, because the thankless process that we have sitting up here is hearing the concerns from the folks in the audience that want the city to do better, and then us having to come back and try to convey that we as a city are trying to do better and that we stand up with staff on the matter. And so as much as I appreciate Mr. Keller, you and your staff and your 55 employees, you live here. And I appreciate you now knowing that maybe this is the notice. I don't ever want to hash it out in public, but sometimes maybe this is the way where everybody gets the message and it's conveyed. In the meantime, we handle these issues on Tuesday and Wednesday with the idea that we're going to pass them forward to have this discussion in front of the public, because it's important for all of you to know that we take this serious. We take our job serious. We work hard to do what's in the best interest of the community and to protect your tax dollars. And with that being said, I commend Mayor Barney in particular. His comments, I think, last week had me thinking about this the most. Even though the bid is still under what the estimate was in advance, it's still your tax dollars. And so we're going to have this conversation again, obviously, when it comes to final payment. But I hope that, in particular, this contractor that we've discussed tonight, I hope you get the message. This body is no longer the pass-through. We're looking at every aspect of it and the importance of protecting not just you, but your tax dollars. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll be supporting your comments tonight. And but I commend city staff, because I think the line's been drawn, and I think those recommendations going forward are going to have a lot more sway. So thank you.
Further discussion? Further discussion? I want to remind everybody on the council that that the motion on the floor is to accept the second lowest bidder. So it's one of these confusing things where I just want to warn you to be careful of your vote, because sometimes it's a negative to do a positive or whatever. So the motion on the floor is to accept the second lowest bidder. Having said that, if there's no further discussion, call the roll.
Sitma,
Yes.
Straight,
No.
Wolski,
No.
Barney,
No.
Janser,
No.
Olson. Yes. Padragula.
No.
Motion fails. Do we get an alternative motion? Is there anyone with Alderman Janser?
I move that we accept the low bids.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Wolski. Discussion on the low bid motion. Second. Anybody wish to comment? Call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Sitma,
No.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Barney.
Yes. That takes us to, motion passes. That takes us to item number 10, 2018 Street Seal District Award Bid. I had this pulled because I believe there's a correction that needs to be made in the documentation. Is there somebody from city staff that wants to explain that correction? Mr. Meyer?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it was just a simple typo. We were off by 22 cents in our recommendations. We just correct the total amount is all.
Okay. So could we amend what we did last week for the math correction amended?
So moved with the correction.
So moved with the correction?
Second.
The second agrees. Very good. Any discussion on that item? Any discussion? Call the roll.
Sitma,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Barney,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 11 is the continuation of the discussion we had on item number 9. Is there somebody wishing to make a motion? Alderman Janser.
Mr. Mayor, I move we accept the low bid on this issue.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Padragula. And for those of you in the audience that are maybe a little bit confused right now, the motion that came out of committee was to accept the second lowest bid. The motion on the floor right now is to accept the low bid. So if there's anybody who wishes to discuss this, please come forward. I think everybody left. All right, any discussion from the council? Call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Sitma,
No.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Barney.
Yes. Item number 12 is the landfill use / financial arrangements for private contractors. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Sitma,
Second.
seconded by Straight. Alderman Padragula.
I'd like to modify that in terms of this starting date. Originally, I proposed we start charging, it was April 1st, and staff has informed all of us that they would like a little bit more time to make sure this is done right in terms of the computer and the billing procedures and notification of contractors and things like that. And I'd like to, I don't know if it's necessary to amend it, but to amend my original motion to have this go into effect June 1st.
Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Seconded by Wolski. Discussion on the amendment. Alderman Straight.
Mr. Mayor, I guess I'm just going to take a minute and thank Alderman Padragula for sticking on this. This is something that came on our radar a couple months ago, and I think it's critical for the folks in the audience to know that we're talking about late fees, contractors that are late and delinquent on paying fees to the city of Minot. It's not our job to serve as a bank. We all have obligations, and if people are going month and month and month with late fees, it's your dollars essentially. And so Alderman Padragula's motion is to tighten up the ranks here and institute a late fee structure for all of those that do business with the city of Minot. So I commend him on that, sir.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment? Call the roll on the amendment.
Padragula,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Barney,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Amendment passes. We have an amended motion on the floor. Further discussion on that motion? Call the roll.
Sitma,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Barney,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 12 is our ordinances on second reading.
Move that, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Janser,
Second.
seconded by Olson. Discussion on second reading. Discussion. Call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Barney.
Yes. Item number 13, our administrative approvals.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Sitma, seconded by Janser. Discussion. Call the roll.
Sitma,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Barney,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 14 is other business. I have one item I'd like to bring to your attention, and I believe it's on your desk, and that is with regards to the Bush Foundation. Mr. Lakefield, do you have some comments to make?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you. This was previously approved at a prior council meeting, but this grant has changed a little bit. The prior action approved that Service Valley United Way administer the grant, and we would like now that the city staff will handle the grant administration in-house. It's been approved. We have the grant agreement. We just need to sign it and return it back to them. So I would ask that we authorize, or that you reaffirm the authorization of the grant and authorize me to sign the grant documents.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Moved by Janser.
Second.
Seconded by Olson. Discussion? Discussion? Call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Padragula. Yes. Sitma,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Barney.
Yes. Before we get to item number 15, I wanted to just very briefly comment about that grant. That grant was for $208,000 to help us address the opioid addiction problem within our community. And I'd like to publicly thank, although she's not here because of the weather, Megan Lautenschlager, who, although my name's all over it, I did very little. Those of you who know me aren't surprised. But she did the work. She's the one who put it together. She's the one that submitted it, and I would like to publicly thank her for that. And that's it. Item number 15, Alderman Wolski.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thanks for your continued hard work on the opioid issue. Obviously, the work that went into this grant is going to be a significant head start on implementing the many things that need to be implemented to make progress on that issue. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 15.
Move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned. Mr. Jonason.